Right, here we go with time management in under 8 minutes. Big challenge, I'm going to go quickly. Now, the first thing with time management is not to confuse important and urgent. So most people do the most urgent things first, but then they never get round to the important things, which are often not urgent. So you've got things that are urgent and not urgent, but you've also got things that are important and not important. So clearly box 1 is the crisis box. We have to deal with that. And part of time management is to not be in the crisis box too much. In fact, if you find yourself in the crisis box a lot, you need to think about why. And the thinking about why is done in box 3, because this is important but not urgent. So try to take a bit of time to think about why did that crisis happen. Get to the underlying cause and fix it for next time, so that we want to minimize the amount of crisis that we get. So this planning ahead box is absolutely the key to all of time management, actually. Everything that's got any value is going to be in box 3. So things like self-development are in box 3, looking after your team are in box 3, planning ahead, thinking about the future. It's all in box 3. It's all important, but not urgent. But if we're not careful, we spend our whole life in box 2, just doing urgent but not important stuff, running like a hamster in their wheel every day, just trying to keep up. So we're going to have to spend half our day in box 2, but we don't want to spend the whole day in box 2. And finally, there's box 4, not important and not urgent. We want to minimize the time we spend in there. So the key is to minimize all of the unimportant stuff and then spend more time over here. And obviously we want to try to minimize box 1 by spending time in box 3. And we want to maximize box 3. And that's what time management's really all about. Maximizing the time that you spend on important things and doing them in a non-urgent way, if we could only do that. Now, how can we get more time for box 3? How can we reduce the time we're spending on boxes 2 and 4? And the answer is as follows. If you look at your day, you've got loads of stuff coming in and you've got loads of stuff being done every day. But what are the 5 things we can do to get more time? And the first one is say no to stuff. Get better at saying no. Particularly in your personal life, I think this is a big one. You've got to be careful with saying no to bosses and customers, of course. But get better at saying no. Even if you can just say no to 1 hour a week, that gets you 50 hours a year, which is a whole extra week, more than a week really, of working time per year. The next thing is a partial no, which is to negotiate. So we can negotiate over the stuff that's coming in and say, I can only come for a 1 hour meeting, or can I do it next week rather than now, or whatever. So we can negotiate. That's the second weapon that we've got. The third thing we can do is delegate. So this is where we let it in, but then we give it to somebody else. Now, obviously, if you're a boss, delegating is huge. If you're not in charge of people, it's not such a good option. But sometimes you can delegate sideways or upwards or whatever. And in your personal life, you can pay people to do things. I pay a man to cut my hedge because I've realised that it's worth £40 to have a whole day of my life freed up. So delegating is an option, especially when you're a manager. Probably the biggest one when you're a boss, actually. Delegating is huge. But what if you can't say no or negotiate? You can't delegate. Well, another option is to let it in and then do it by having more efficient systems. So to an extent, time management is about having really efficient systems, writing everything down, making sure that you don't have to duplicate tasks, having standard emails you send, whatever it might be. And then your final option to get more done is to do it less well. Now, this is controversial. Some people don't like this one. But really, doing it less well has to be an option. I would call it being less fussy. Because if you're a perfectionist, you'll spend ages on things that are not important. Remember, all of this is about stuff that's not important. How can we spend less time on unimportant things? So if you're a perfectionist, yes, do the important things really well, but not the unimportant things. And that brings me to the next time management idea, which is that there are 3 personality drivers which affect our use of time. And one of them is the Be Perfect driver. And this is a little voice in our head which tells us that everything we do has to be perfect. And you've got to overcome that, because life isn't about trying to do everything perfectly. You just can't. The second driver is the Please Others driver. And this is where we worry about what other people are going to think. And again, it's put into us probably by our childhood, our upbringing, and by school. But what it means is we get really bad at saying no, because remember, it's your life. And you can't spend the whole time helping everybody else and not having a life for yourself. So you want to be a team player, but you have to also safeguard your own time. And then finally there's the hurry up driver, which is really being fed into us by the modern speeded up world that we live in, even by videos like this, where we want to do everything really, really fast. And the answer to the hurry up driver is that yes, we want to do the unimportant stuff quicker, we want to have systems and perhaps do things less well sometimes, but important things shouldn't be hurried up. Important things, we want to spend as much time as we can on those. So something like planning the next 5 years, we don't want to rush through that. We want to put some time aside and do it really well. So knowing when to hurry up and when not to hurry up is really important. Now, 2 more things still to cover in this video. The first one is procrastination. We all have a tendency to put off things that are big or difficult. And often these are box 3 important things. So procrastination can really harm box 3, the most important box. So we need little tricks we can use to stop us putting things off. And there are loads of these, and I'm just going to tell you about my top 5. And the first one is make a note in your diary. So if you're putting something off, just put aside an hour on Tuesday when you're going to do it. And then that time will be free, you're more likely to do it. The second idea is just plunge in and start it. Just start writing that presentation. Just make that phone call before you've had time to think about why it's a bad idea and why it might go wrong. Just plunge in and do it. The next idea is just to do the first part of something. Just tell yourself, all I'll do is I'll get the file out and start reading it. All I'll do is write the first chapter. All I'll do is phone one person from my list of 10 calls I have to make. Just tell yourself I'll just do the first part. And then at least you've started, and quite often you'll carry on from there. My next idea to overcome procrastination is to reward yourself. Just say, after I've done the first call, I'll have a cup of coffee. After I've done all 10 calls, I'll have some chocolate. And the final one is start the day with a tough one. So come into work and just think, right, what's the worst job I've got? And do that, because then you feel great for the whole rest of the day. And if you can make that a habit, that's a really great habit to develop. Now, the final bit of time management is systems. I want to go back to this more efficient systems thing. And I want to tell you about the 3 things that you have to have if you're going to be efficient. And the first thing that you have to have is a master list. So this is a great big list of everything that you're going to do so you don't forget anything. The second thing you have to have is a jobs to-do list every day. So this is just a small piece of paper, or it could be on your phone, it could even be written on your hand, it doesn't matter, but a little list of what you're going to do today, which makes sure that you don't forget stuff, you don't have to hold it in your head, and it feels good to cross it off, and that will get a lot more done. And then the final thing you need to have is some sort of diary or calendar. And in there you have appointments, but you also put in some appointments with yourself. You block out some time. You make a note of anything that you need to remember for the future. And finally, you keep space free for things that are going to crop up. Because half of your day is stuff that you weren't expecting. So therefore, you need to keep half of your day free for these unexpected tasks. If you fill your diary up completely, then your day is going to be a nightmare when everything crops up. So there we are, that is time management in under 8 minutes.